I almost didn't notice him. The first time I was just passing through, driving past the old elementary school at the edge of town. The building's been shut down for months, windows boarded, playground rusting, paint peeling like it's trying to forget something. But there he was, a puppy, German Shepherd, maybe 4 months old, sitting right at the front steps, still as a statue, not barking, not whining, just waiting. I slowed down, thinking maybe someone was nearby, but the parking lot was empty. I rolled past slowly. His eyes followed the car, but he didn't move, just kept sitting there, like he belonged to the place. The next day, same thing, same spot, same puppy. This time I stopped. He didn't run when I got out, just watched. Close up, I could see he was thin. Dust clung to his fur like he'd been sleeping on the ground. But the strangest part, he had something in his mouth. A tiny faded backpack. Kid-sized. Blue with a bright yellow sun stitched onto the front. The strap was torn, but he gripped it like it mattered more than anything. "Hey, buddy," I said, crouching down. He didn't blink, just tightened his hold on the backpack. I backed away. Didn't want to scare him, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. The third day, I brought food. Nothing fancy, just some chicken and rice in a takeout container. I parked across the street and watched for a few minutes. He was already there, curled at the top of the steps like some kind of tiny sentinel. The backpack was still with him, tucked under one paw. His eyes moved as cars passed, but he didn't chase, didn't bark, just watched. I crossed slowly, setting the food down about 10 feet away. He lifted his head, ears perked, but didn't get up. I sat on the curb and waited. Minutes passed. A breeze kicked up dust around us. A bird chirped somewhere behind the fence. He didn't move. Then finally, like he had made some kind of decision, he stood, walked forward 3 steps, sniffed the food, looked at me, ate 2 bites, then carried the rest back to the steps, back to the backpack. I didn't say anything, just watched. The next day I came earlier. He was already there. This time, when I sat, he didn't wait as long. He came to the food, still cautious, but closer. I noticed the tag on the backpack this time, faded, almost rubbed off, but I could still read it. Leo, 3rd grade. That hit me hard. He wasn't just sitting here, he was waiting for someone. A little boy named Leo. I started asking around. The school had shut down 2 months ago due to funding cuts. Staff was relocated, families scattered. No one knew specifics. No one remembered a kid named Leo. Or maybe they did, but didn't want to get involved. I went back every day. Sometimes I'd talk to him, just sit and tell him about my day or stories from the shelter where I volunteered. He never responded, but he always listened. He never left that spot, not for storms, not for cold, not for anything, always with that backpack in his mouth. Every day, the same question played in my mind. What kind of love makes a puppy wait this long? One morning, I came by earlier than usual. The sun hadn't fully risen, and the parking lot was still blanketed in mist. He was there, as always, sitting tall at the top of the steps. The backpack rested beside him like a ritual. But something was different. He looked tired, more than usual, like the waiting was starting to wear him down. I crossed the lot slowly, holding a small blanket and a fresh bowl of water. When I got closer, he stood, not to run, not to bark, just to place himself between me and the backpack. He still didn't trust me, not fully, but he wasn't afraid anymore. I sat down a few feet away. No sudden moves, no expectations. I set the blanket on the ground, then the water. He didn't move, just watched. "I don't know if Leo's coming back," I whispered, "but I'm here." He didn't react, but his eyes stayed on me longer this time. That was something. Later that day, I went to the town records office, dug through old school documents, class rosters, anything. And I found it. A yearbook from last spring. 3rd grade. Class photo, 20 kids in bright shirts, gap-toothed smiles, and messy hair. There he was, Leo. And right next to him, in the corner of the frame, a puppy, German Shepherd, tiny, leaning into Leo's side like he belonged there. They were inseparable. I asked the front desk about the family. The woman frowned, then lowered her voice. They were in the system. Foster. Got moved out fast after the shutdown, no forwarding info. Just gone. Gone. No wonder the dog never left. No one told him. I drove back to the school. The sky was overcast, the wind sharp. He was there. Of course he was. I didn't even try to talk this time. I just sat beside him, close enough for him to feel the warmth from my shoulder. He didn't move, but he didn't pull away either. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing his eyes, the way he sat, The way he watched every car like it might be the one. He had no idea how to stop hoping, no idea how to let go. And somehow that broke me more than anything else. The next morning, I brought a leash, not to force anything. I wasn't ready to take him away from that spot. I just wanted him to know it was an option. When I arrived, he was curled up tighter than usual. It had rained overnight, and the cold had settled into the concrete like a second skin. His fur was damp. The backpack was soaked through, still tucked under his chin like a pillow. He didn't even lift his head when I approached. Just blinked slowly, like he was too tired to pretend anymore. I sat beside him and laid the leash on the ground. "If you ever want to leave," I said gently, "I'll take you." He didn't move. I pulled out a towel and carefully started drying the backpack. He didn't stop me, just watched. When I finished, I placed it next to him again, right where he liked it. Then I unwrapped a warm breakfast sandwich and offered him a piece. He sniffed it, then slowly took it from my hand. His first time. That afternoon, I brought a crate with soft blankets and set it near the steps, leaving the door open. I didn't expect him to use it. But that night, as I drove past to check, I saw him curled inside, still holding the backpack, but finally out of the rain. Something inside me shifted. I didn't just want to help him survive anymore. I wanted him to live. I called my friend Amanda, a local vet, and told her everything. She said if I could get him into a car, she'd check him for free. I asked her if he looked healthy enough to train as a therapy dog, if maybe, someday, he could help other kids like Leo. She paused, then said, if he's been sitting there that long without giving up, he's already halfway there. The next few days, he started meeting me at the gate, still with the backpack, but closer, less afraid. He'd eat beside me, sit beside me, not quite touching, but close. I started calling him Scout. I don't know why. Maybe because he was always on watch, or maybe because it felt like a name Leo would have picked. I never said it loudly, just softly, every time I arrived, and after a while, when I whispered, "Hey, Scout," he'd wag his tail, just once. But that was enough. That week, I came early on a Friday morning, thinking maybe it was time. Scout was already at the gate, sitting tall with the backpack resting between his paws. His fur was cleaner now, less matted. His eyes were brighter. Something in him had softened. I knelt beside him and reached out, palm up. He didn't hesitate. His nose touched my fingers, then lingered. When I slowly clipped the leash to his collar, an old, faded thing I hadn't noticed before, he didn't pull away, just stood up and looked at me like he was ready. Still, I didn't rush. We walked around the block once. He stayed close, his steps cautious but steady. I let him lead. Every so often, he'd glance back toward the school, but he didn't stop. I didn't speak, just walked beside him like we'd been doing it forever. When we came back to the steps, he climbed up and laid down beside the crate. The backpack was still there. He nudged it once with his nose, then looked at me. That afternoon, I brought my truck, opened the door, waited. He looked at the seat, then at me. I patted the blanket. Come on, Scout. He jumped in. The backpack followed. Amanda met us at the clinic. She crouched to greet him, hands open and calm. "You're a handsome boy," she said. He let her examine him without protest, quiet as ever, gentle. She checked his eyes, his joints, his weight. "He's underfed, but no serious injuries," she said. "And his temperament? Perfect. Whatever he's been through, it didn't break him." I asked if she thought he could handle training, therapy, certification, hospital visits, time with children. She looked at Scout, who was sitting calmly beside the exam table, tail resting softly on the floor, eyes watching us both. "He was made for it," she said. That night, for the first time, Scout came home with me. He didn't explore, didn't sniff or wander. He just walked to the corner of the living room, circled once, and laid down. The backpack beside him, he fell asleep fast. I sat on the floor nearby, watching his chest rise and fall. It was the first time I saw him truly rest, and something told me he finally believed he wasn't alone anymore. The first few days at home were quiet. Scout didn't bark, didn't whine. He followed me from room to room, never more than a few steps behind, but never in the way. He slept beside the couch, always with the backpack close, one paw resting on it like a memory he wasn't ready to let go of. I gave him space, let him come to me on his own terms. When I worked at the desk, he curled at my feet. When I cooked, he sat in the corner, eyes soft and steady. And every night before bed, I'd sit beside him and talk about nothing, about everything, just so he could hear my voice, just so he'd know he was safe. On the fourth night, he climbed up onto the couch without me asking. He laid his head on my leg, heavy and warm, and let out a sigh that sounded like it came from somewhere deep inside his ribs. That was the moment I knew. He wasn't waiting for Leo anymore. He was starting to choose me. The next day, we visited the training center. Scout walked beside me through the automatic doors like he'd done it 1,000 times. No pulling, no fear. The trainers were impressed. He's calm, one said, almost like he already knows what to do. I told them his story in pieces, what I knew of it anyway, about the school, the steps, the backpack, the waiting. They listened, and their expressions shifted from professional curiosity to something softer. One of them knelt down and rubbed Scout's ears. "He's got that thing," she said. "The empathy. Some dogs are born with it. It can't be taught." Over the next few weeks, we trained together. Obedience, focus, sensitivity. Scout passed every test without hesitation. He responded to touch, to emotion, to silence, especially silence. One day during a practice session, a child of a volunteer sat in a chair with her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She had been instructed to stay withdrawn. Scout approached slowly, sat in front of her, and then gently, without command, he rested his chin on her knee. She cried. Not loud, not messy, just soft tears falling onto her jeans as she reached out to touch his head. That night, when we got home, I gave him a new toy, a small stuffed sun, bright yellow, just like the patch on Leo's backpack. He carried it to his bed, set it down beside the backpack, then laid between them, like somehow they both still mattered, and maybe they did. Our first real visit was at a small community center downtown. It wasn't a hospital or a crisis shelter, just a quiet room where kids gathered after school while their parents worked late. Some had been through more than most adults. Some were just lonely. Some didn't talk much. Most didn't trust strangers. I brought Scout in on a Tuesday afternoon. The kids were sitting in a circle, coloring, building puzzles, speaking in half words. A few looked up when we walked in. One boy stood right away, pointing. "Dog," he said. The staff gave me a nervous glance. I nodded. "His name's Scout. He's here to hang out." Scout didn't rush. He didn't jump or bark or act like he needed attention. He simply walked the room, tail low, head level. He paused beside each child, letting them come to him, never pushing, never forcing. A girl in the corner wouldn't look at us. Hood over her head, crayon gripped tight in her fingers. Her paper had no color, just pressure, circles and lines that went nowhere. Scout walked over, sat, waited. Minutes passed. Then she looked at him. He tilted his head, just slightly. She didn't speak, but her hand reached out and brushed the top of his head. That was all he needed. He laid down beside her, curling up close but not touching. She went back to drawing, this time with purple. Then blue. The counselor pulled me aside. "That's Maya," she whispered. "She hasn't touched anyone in 3 weeks. Not even her sister." I nodded, watching Scout breathe slow and steady on the floor. That night, back at home, he didn't go to his bed. Instead, he lay beside the front door, the backpack tucked under one paw, the yellow toy sun under the other, as if he was holding the past and present at once. The next morning, he met me by the door before I was even dressed. Tail wagging, eyes bright. He was ready to go back, ready to be needed. And I realized I wasn't leading him anymore. I was following. We started going twice a week, sometimes to the community center, sometimes to schools, once to a home where kids were placed after being removed from unsafe families. Those were the hardest visits. The rooms felt heavy, the air thick with silence and shame. But Scout never hesitated. He walked into every space like he belonged there, like he'd already been sent ahead to find the cracks in people's hearts. He didn't need instructions. He just knew. There was a boy named Carter. 10 years old, foster care since he was 4. He sat alone in the back of the room, arms folded so tight it looked like he was holding himself together. Scout approached. Carter didn't look up. Scout sat. Carter didn't move. Scout leaned forward, gently placing the yellow sun toy beside Carter's shoe. Still nothing. Then Scout lay down, pressed his side against the boy's foot, and closed his eyes. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Then Carter moved, slow, careful. He picked up the toy, turned it over in his hands. Then, without a word, he placed it on Scout's back, like giving it back meant something bigger than either of them could say. The counselor told me later that Carter hadn't spoken a full sentence in 2 months. But that day, after Scout left, he asked for a crayon, drew a dog with a sun on its back. Scout had unlocked something no adult could reach. At home, Scout seemed lighter. His steps had a rhythm. His eyes didn't search the door like they used to. He still kept the backpack close, but he didn't carry it everywhere anymore. It stayed in his bed, folded neatly like an old photo you don't want to lose, but don't need to look at every day. One evening, I found him lying in the backyard, belly up, paws in the air, snoring like a truck engine. And for a moment, I forgot he was ever that silent shadow sitting alone on the school steps. He wasn't waiting anymore. He was living, and changing lives while he did. There was one visit that stayed with me more than all the rest. We were called to a middle school after a student had died unexpectedly. An accident. The whole campus was in shock. Grief counselors had been brought in, but they told us the students weren't talking. No one knew what to say, or how. Scout and I arrived during lunch. The halls were quiet. No laughter, no noise, just footsteps and whispers. We were led to the library, where a small group of kids sat at scattered tables, pretending to read. Most stared at nothing. One girl, thin and pale, sat curled in a beanbag in the far corner, her hoodie pulled low over her face. Her name was Riley. Her friend, the one who had passed, used to sit there with her every day. Scout saw her instantly. He walked across the room, silent as breath, and paused beside her. She didn't look up, didn't move. He waited. Then he did something I'll never forget. He turned, laid down with his back against her legs, and slowly leaned in until he was touching her side, just enough to be felt. And he stayed like that, still, present. A few minutes passed. Then she shifted, just slightly. Her fingers dropped from her hoodie and found the fur at his neck. She didn't say a word, but the tears came fast, not loud, not dramatic, just pain, honest and unhidden, soaking into his fur like rain into soil. Later, the counselor told me Riley hadn't spoken to anyone in 3 days, not even her parents. But after we left, she sat down and wrote a letter to her friend, folded it, placed it in her locker, closure in a way no adult could have helped her find. That night, Scout was quiet. He didn't eat much. He laid down beside the front door again, like he needed to feel close to something older than memory. I brought him his backpack, laid it next to him. He placed a paw on it, then rested his head. I sat beside him in the dark for a long time. We didn't need words. He had taken in so much that day. But that was his gift. He didn't fix broken things. He just sat with them, gently, until they weren't alone anymore. I never asked Scout to be anything more than a dog. But somehow he became something no one could explain. Not a hero, not a miracle, just present, honest, whole, the kind of presence that makes silence feel safe. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a local school, not as a professional, just a volunteer with a story. They'd heard about Scout, wanted the kids to meet him. I brought the backpack with me that day, not for show, just because I felt like maybe it was time. The kids were in 3rd grade, same age Leo would have been. I stood in front of the class, Scout at my side, the backpack in my hands. I told them how I'd found him. About the school steps, the waiting, the blue backpack with the sun stitched on the front, about a dog who wouldn't leave because he believed someone still needed him. The room was still. When I finished, a small voice near the window spoke up, a boy with freckles, hugging his knees. "Did Leo ever come back?" I paused. Scout looked up at me. "No," I said quietly. But someone else did, and Scout chose him. The boy nodded like he understood something most grown-ups wouldn't. Afterward, the teacher pulled me aside. "That boy lost his brother last year. He's never spoken during group time, until now." We walked out together. Scout trotted ahead, tail swinging like it always did when the day had gone right. As we reached the sidewalk, I looked down at the backpack in my hand. It didn't feel heavy anymore. That night, at home, I placed it on a high shelf in my office. Not hidden, not forgotten, just remembered. Scout lay beside the couch, his yellow sun toy between his paws. He looked at me once, then closed his eyes. He didn't need the backpack to remember Leo. He carried that in his bones, but he wasn't waiting anymore. He was moving forward with every child he comforted, every tear he absorbed, every room he walked into and made a little warmer. He was no longer the dog waiting on the school steps. He was the dog showing others that waiting doesn't have to last forever. I still drive past that old school sometimes. The windows are still boarded up, The paint still flakes off in the wind. The steps where I first saw him are cracked now, weeds pushing through the lines like nature's way of remembering what people try to forget. But I remember. I remember the way he sat, silent, still, waiting with that tiny backpack in his mouth like it was the only piece of his world he had left. I remember how he didn't run, how he didn't bark, how he just watched and waited. And I think about all the people who passed by him, who saw him, who didn't stop. But I did. And because I stopped, a dog who was once abandoned, forgotten, left in front of a locked school with nothing but a threadbare backpack and a memory, became a light in the darkest rooms. Scout never saved lives with noise. He did it with presence, with patience, with that quiet, unshakable belief that even when everything falls apart, someone will come. Someone will care. Someone will sit with you until the pain isn't so sharp and the silence isn't so loud. If you're listening to this, maybe you've passed by something that looked broken, looked small, looked lost. Maybe you told yourself someone else would stop. But what if they didn't? What if they never do? Then be the one. Be the one who slows down. Be the one who gets out of the car. Be the one who speaks softly, waits patiently, and stays long enough for trust to grow. Because somewhere out there, there's another Scout sitting alone, still believing in the people who left him. And maybe, just maybe, he's not waiting for them anymore. He's waiting for you.